He spun a lie about a $1 stock, raked in millions, and spent just 22 months behind bars. Then Hollywood turned his fraud into a box office hit. This is the story of Jordan Belfort, the man who conned America and somehow got wealthy all over again. And here's the craziest part. People still root for him. Bayside, Queens, 1962. A working-class Jewish neighborhood where expectations were small and ambition had a clear limit. But one kid, Jordan Belfort, had zero interest in limits. One lemon ice, please. For you, 2 for 1, if you tell 3 friends. What are you, 12? 16, and I'm going to be rich. By the end of that summer, he'd pocketed 20 grand selling Italian ices. At 16, most kids would have blown it on a Camaro. Jordan didn't. He signed up for dental school. On day 1, the dean addressed the class and said, "If you're here to make money, you chose the wrong career." Jordan stood up, gave a polite nod, and walked straight out. Just like that, because he wasn't there to fix teeth. He was there to get rich, and this wasn't the road to do it. Next stop, meat. After college, Jordan started a door-to-door meat and seafood business. Yes, actually. You sell what? USDA Prime, ma'am. Flash frozen, hormone-free, and cheaper than your neighborhood butcher. I don't eat red meat. Perfect. Let me show you our premium salmon. It was chaotic, rough around the edges, but oddly successful. $100,000 a month in sales. No trucks, no storage, no real plan. Just Jordan. Hustling, pushing, grinding, steaks melting in the back seat, missed deliveries, spoiled inventory, stacks of unpaid bills. Reality hit hard and fast. Within months, the business collapsed into bankruptcy. But buried in the ruins, Jordan uncovered what would become his greatest weapon. The product was irrelevant. Steaks, surfboards, stocks. It didn't matter. You did. If you could sell anything. And just like that, a salesman was fully formed. Jordan didn't need a better product. He needed a bigger payoff. That led him to Wall Street. He landed a junior job at L.F. Rothschild, a real firm with tailored suits, sales quotas, and cocaine in the bathroom stalls. It was the 1980s after all. This is where he got his first real taste of money, greed, and power. He learned how markets moved, how brokers spoke, and, most importantly, how they sold. Then October 1987 hit, Black Monday. Phones went silent. Brokers stared in disbelief as the ticker collapsed. The market imploded. Jordan lost his job. But while everyone else panicked, Jordan saw something different. Opportunity. He stumbled onto penny stocks, pink sheet junk no respectable broker would touch. Unregulated, thinly traded. And here was the secret, 50% commissions. Same sales pitch. 10 times the payoff. No elite education needed. Just a phone and a mouth that moved fast. So Jordan started dialing. Some unsuspecting guy in Nebraska picked up. "Hello? Mr. Michael, listen closely. This company is tiny right now, sure, but it's sitting on technology that's about to change home entertainment forever. This is a ground floor play, pre-IPO, totally off Wall Street's radar. The big players haven't even noticed it yet. But when they do, boom, we're talking at least a 10 times return. You get in today at $1 a share, and 6 months from now, you won't be thanking me. You'll be calling from your beach house in Maui. So here's what we're doing. I'm locking you in for 4,000 shares. Sound good? I don't really understand what the company does." You don't need to understand the company, sir. You just need to understand the upside. That's how smart money works. They move before the crowd wakes up. So what's it going to be? First in? Or reading about it in Forbes next year thinking, "I should have listened." And just like that, he closed $4,000 on a single call. No rules, no watchdogs, no pauses, just cold calls and pure adrenaline. He'd found his territory, and he was ready to rule it. By 1989, Jordan Belfort was already pouring another drink. This time he had company. Enter Danny Porish, a fast-talking, drug-fueled misfit from Long Island with a salesman's charm and a hustler's instincts. He wasn't Wall Street material. Some days he barely felt human, but he could close deals, and Jordan recognized it immediately. Hunger, loyalty, no limits. Together, they were volatile. Jordan had the vision. Danny supplied the chaos. And out of that chaos, they built an empire. Welcome to Stratton Oakmont. The name sounded old money prestigious, like leather-bound books in a century of history. In reality, it was a strip mall boiler room with flickering lights, mismatched desks, and zero regulatory supervision. The first recruits weren't analysts. They weren't even trained. They were bartenders, college dropouts, and local hustlers. Jordan didn't want resumes. He wanted hunger. He didn't need thinkers. He needed closers. And then came the training. Jordan created a system he called straight-line persuasion, a psychological pressure chamber engineered to transform nervous rookies into relentless, high-stakes operators. He trained them to steamroll hesitation, silence uncertainty, and push a prospect from hello to where do I sign in one continuous, unbroken line. Before long, the office developed a pulse. Fast, loud, addictive. The phones never went quiet. Orders never slowed down. The atmosphere crackled with energy. Egos swelled, and the money kept piling higher. But Stratton's real genius wasn't only in how it sold. It was in who it targeted. They went after investors no one else wanted. Working-class retirees, struggling parents, people Wall Street had written off. Stratton sold them hope, wrapped in urgency, dressed up as certainty, supported by fabricated forecasts. At first, the products were obscure penny stocks, pink sheet junk with ticker symbols like BZZT or YUMY, companies that barely existed beyond their own press releases. But once the cash started pouring in, the game escalated. It wasn't just fake companies anymore. Now it was real IPOs. They scooped up massive blocks of cheap shares, then turned the sales floor into a full-blown hype factory. Call after call, promise after promise. They flooded the market with manufactured excitement, drove the price sky high, then unloaded everything at the peak, leaving thousands of investors stuck with worthless shares. It was known as a pump and dump. At Stratton Oakmont, it was just another Tuesday. By the early 90s, the firm had detonated in size. Stratton wasn't merely a brokerage, it was a circus. The office, a constant blur of screaming phones, air horns, and raw testosterone. $2,000 suits, and enough drugs to drop a rhinoceros. Jordan built an ecosystem where fear and loyalty became forms of currency. Top producers were treated like kings, massive bonuses, luxury trips, even expensive watches tossed across the room like party favors. Underperformers, publicly shamed, shown the door, replaced within hours. And then there were the parties, strippers in the boardroom, champagne flooding fax machines, cocaine lines scraped off compliance manuals. Nothing was off limits. Not the furniture, not the company cars, not even the fire extinguisher, once filled with whipped cream and tequila. By then, Jordan wasn't just a boss. He was a cult leader in an Armani suit. He bought a helicopter, named his yacht after his wife, Naomi. He owned mansions, Lamborghinis, and Rolexes. And through it all, he preached the same message. Winning is everything. And if you're not winning, you're nothing. On paper, Stratton Oakmont looked unstoppable. They took companies public. They raised hundreds of millions. Growth came so fast it seemed unreal. But beneath the surface, it was all illusion. Because when the truth won't sell, you sell the dream. And Jordan Belfort had built his empire on that principle. By 1994, Stratton Oakmont was blazing, launching IPOs, moving massive sums, and drawing national attention. But underneath the success, the foundation was starting to decay. The IPO playbook was aggressive, repetitive, and increasingly reckless. Same formula. Inflate the stock, oversell the fantasy, get out before reality arrives. This time, though, they weren't invisible. The SEC had begun flagging a growing number of suspicious filings. Complaints stacked up from investors who bought in at $7, only to watch it collapse to 30 cents. Inside the firm, some brokers began to question what they were pushing. They were selling stocks with no revenue, no product, sometimes not even a working phone number. Management's response was simple: close the deal or leave. And as the business expanded, hiding the money became more complex. Millions were routed offshore through tangled networks of shell companies. Some accounts sat in the UK under Jordan's aunt's name. Others were stashed in Geneva under corporations that didn't exist. At one point, cash was moved by couriers, including a housekeeper smuggling money in envelopes sewn into her bra. Jordan called it asset protection. The FBI called it money laundering. Inside the firm, the culture was shifting. Drugs, once a perk, became mandatory. Quaaludes slowed their speech. Cocaine snapped them back into motion. People blacked out mid-call. One broker suffered a seizure on the trading floor. Fights erupted over commissions, women, or sheer excess. At least 2 employees had to be dragged out after violent breakdowns. And Jordan? He was falling apart faster than the company itself. His marriage was collapsing. His wife found pills hidden in couch cushions, syringes tucked away in bathrooms. Once, high on lewds, he slammed his Ferrari into a concrete pillar with his 3-year-old daughter riding shotgun. Then came the yacht disaster. In June 1996, ignoring his captain's warnings, Jordan demanded they sail from Italy to Sardinia during a storm. He was drunk, high, and convinced he was untouchable. The Naomi began taking on water in the middle of the Tyrrhenian Sea. On board were Jordan, his wife, their daughter, and more than $2 million worth of jewelry and drugs. The Italian Navy had to pull them out. The yacht was a total loss. Jordan lived, but something inside him broke. Back in New York, the pressure was closing in. Reporters from Forbes and the Wall Street Journal started digging. Former employees began talking. But the real threat was Gregory Coleman, an agent with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Coleman didn't just notice warning signs. He sensed blood in the water. Quietly, methodically, he started reconstructing the story. He collected Stratton's cold call scripts, subpoenaed phone records, and followed real estate purchases that didn't line up with reported income. He noticed Jordan withdrawing cash in deliberate patterns. $50,000 cashier's checks, funneled through casinos and art dealers. Coleman knew exactly what that meant, and eventually so did Jordan. What Jordan didn't realize was that some of his own brokers had already turned. One was caught in a separate fraud case. Another felt burned after a promised bonus never came. They agreed to cooperate. They wore wires, recorded conversations, handed over documents. As the pressure mounted, more followed, not out of conscience, but survival. Then came October 1996. Federal agents stormed Stratton Oakmont just after sunrise. Phones were yanked from desks. File cabinets were emptied. Hard drives duplicated. Employees interrogated. One person tried flushing documents. Another attempted to leave with a briefcase full of shredded contracts. It didn't matter. The FBI already had what it needed. Still, Jordan wasn't finished. In early 1997, while under investigation and explicitly warned not to move money, he wired $2 million to Switzerland. The transfer was tracked. The phone call discussing it was recorded. That single move became the thread that unraveled everything. The chase was over. The collapse had begun. By late 1998, Belfort had no cards left to play. The FBI had tapes. The SEC had paperwork. The empire built on cold calls and lies finally crumbled. Now it was his turn. He faced up to 30 years in federal prison. Wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering. The charges alone could have ended him. So Jordan did what he'd always done best. He sold. Not stocks, information. He flipped. He cooperated. He wore a wire. One by one, the people who once idolized him were handed over like receipts. More than 30 employees were indicted. Brokers, partners, friends. Some had joined Stratton straight out of high school. They learned to sell from Jordan. They followed his rules. And now they were paying the price. Some served longer sentences than he did. Jordan? He got 22 months in a minimum security prison. No fences, no locked cells, guards without guns, mornings playing tennis, afternoons lifting weights, nights spent writing. That's where he met Tommy Chong, the comedian from Cheech and Chong, who was serving time for selling bongs online. Jordan told him everything: the drugs, the yacht, the cash-filled envelopes, the lie that turned into a lifestyle. Tommy wasn't angry, he was entertained. Write it down, he told him. So Jordan did. In 2007, he released The Wolf of Wall Street, a memoir that felt less like a confession and more like a celebration. No apologies, no regret, just yachts, excess, fraud, and jokes. The public loved it. He sold the movie rights, released a sequel, and in 2013, Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio turned it into a global blockbuster. The same man who deceived investors was now entertaining them on the big screen. Audiences laughed, critics praised it, and Jordan Belfort, convicted criminal, former fraudster, became a pop culture figure. But the people he stole from, they got nothing. No movie deals, no redemption arcs. Most never recovered their money. A teacher who lost her pension, a war veteran who invested his life savings, a family that refinanced their home chasing the next big opportunity. They were left with debt, with nothing. The court ordered Jordan to repay $110 million in restitution. To this day, only a small fraction has been returned. The rest, lost in offshore accounts, real estate structures, and legal technicalities. He says he's working on it. The victims are still waiting. Jordan, meanwhile, is doing just fine. He's a motivational speaker, a sales trainer, a podcast host. He sells success, teaches ethics, fills stages around the world. He still calls himself the Wolf. Like a title of pride, not a mark of shame. He didn't just dodge justice, he monetized it. Turned 22 months into a best-selling book. Turned fraud into fame. And maybe the most unsettling part? We applauded. I was guilty of greed, he once said. But everyone is. And maybe that's why he got away with it. Because deep down, we didn't want him punished. We wanted to be him. If you want more videos breaking down stories like this, make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.